And now, Joe Bob Summer School and Forbidden Planet on TNT.
There were just too many famous people to talk about in that movie. Sylvia Sidney, the 30s glamour girl, she was the crazy grandma. The French president was director Barbette Schroeder. Even the waiter who brought Natalie Portman the pizza was a novelist named Julian Barnes. I think Tim Burton maybe should have spent a little less time on casting cameos and a little more on some momentum for the story. But his movies never pay too much attention to story anyway, now that I think about it. Jerzy Skolimowski, he's in the movie. He played Dr. Ziegler. You guys know who Jerzy Skolimowski is? Only the greatest director in Poland. Thank you very much. All right. I want to let you know that next week, Joe Bob Summer School is going on a special field trip for Food Science 504. You're not going to believe this one, but we're going to the world-famous restaurant Spago in Beverly Hills, California, where the one and only Wolfgang Puck is going to teach me how to cook. And we'll be watching the classic Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and the Clint Howard gross-out horror flick, The Ice Cream Man, and Clint Howard himself will be here. And speaking of yummy, our next movie is the 1956 cult favorite that stars Anne Francis in many leg-bearing, futuristic mini dresses. Anne Francis may have invented the mini dress, now that I think about that. You didn't have many girls dressed like this in the 50s. I'm talking about, of course, Forbidden Planet, and Anne will be joining us in a little while to give us all the dirt on Leslie Nielsen and Robbie the Robot. The movie takes place in 2200 AD when Nielsen and a crew of whiskey-loving, horny astronauts land on a planet where the only survivor of a previous colonization is Walter Pigeon and his luscious virginal daughter, who doesn't mind making out with crew members in the bushes even though an invisible monster is tearing people to shreds. Let's do those drive-in totals. We have 7 dead bodies, 1 dead tiger, 2 naked butocs, female this time, brain boosting, door melting, gratuitous underground tour, electron foo, and we're showing it in letterbox format because it was shot in widescreen cinemascope, so I hope your TV's not as dinky as mine is. It's a pretty cool movie. I give it 3.5 stars, subtracting a ½ star only for those scenes without Anne Francis in them. Check it out. And like I said, Anne will be joining us in just a little bit. That naked butoc count, that's been going up lately. Have you noticed that? You guys seen that? This is like the 4th set of butocs we've had in summer school alone. I think that TNT butoc patrol in Atlanta has loosened up a little bit, you know? Okay, you screwed up again, didn't you? It's your 5th year in junior college. Your life has no possibility of improving. Not true if you attend yet another session of Joe Bob Summer School. 9 brain-expanding Saturday nights, good for actual credit at Southern Arizona State Community College at Ajo. But you need to enroll your hiney. To register, you got to go to the summer school website and get a syllabus. Plus, you'll be able to see who some of our guest lecturers are this summer. And you'll also get a sneak peek at a few of the final exam questions. And you can even include yourself in our summer yearbook, listing your worst subject and favorite hobbies. The internet address for Joe Bob Summer School is tnt.turner.com/summer school. That doesn't mean you can skip the dang class. Of course, even academic probation is fun at Joe Bob Summer School, Saturday nights on Turner National Technical Institute.
Visit Joe Bob Summer School at tnt.turner.com/summer school. Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Forbidden Planet on TNT.
The famous Robbie the Robot, which caused a sensation back in 1956. We tried to find Robbie and have him on the show, but we think he's been bought by some Japanese guys. Because my friend Mick Garris, the director of many Stephen King films, directed The Stand, he used to own Robbie and keep him in good working condition, and, well, he never really was in very good working condition. I think they kind of shoved him around from inside somewhere in Robbie. But Mick sold Robbie, and we can't... Oh, we have him? We have Robbie? All right, I'm going to talk to him at the break. We may have Robbie here. Anyhow, that's Leslie Nielsen as the commander. You know, Leslie's now a household name for the Naked Gun movies, but you notice that he acts the same in these early serious movies as in Naked Gun? You just change the writing a little bit, and suddenly he's doing comedy. But he never really changed. Okay, I don't want to kill too much time here because we got Anne Francis coming out at the next break, so roll film. And by the way, who here knows what a philologist is? I'll give you a hint. A philologist would know what a philologist is. Of course, if the philologist wasn't called a philologist, if it was called something equally complex, would the philologist still know what a philologist is? Yes, they would. Or would a philologist by any other name still be a philologist? I don't know. Okay, I'll tell you. A philologist is an expert in philology. First, there was my TNT Monster Vision website with the famous caption contest, which is still going strong, I might add. Then we added the incredibly sexy Monster Vision t-shirt, coveted by would-be prize winners everywhere. Then we added the Find That Flick contest, in which you can win all kinds of free junk just by knowing the plots of weird movies. And now we proudly present Joe Bob's Summer School website, which is the perfect companion to my summer-long movie lineup on TNT. Well, not the perfect companion. Jennifer Lopez would be the perfect companion. But my point is, I'm slowly building an empire here at TNT. It's no longer possible to take me lightly, and I'll take just as much time as I want with this promo. Okay, to find out your class assignments and guest lecturers, get on the information superhighway and drive to tnt.turner.com/summer school and
Enroll at Joe Bob's Summer School now at tnt.turner.com/summer school. Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Forbidden Planet on TNT.
the words we've all been waiting for. Father. Did I do that right? The first words of Anne Francis as Altera Morbius, the lust-inspiring daughter of Walter Pidgeon. And this is where the movie gets really interesting. And this room also just got interesting because live in person with us tonight is the cult heartthrob herself, Anne Francis. So, welcome, Anne. I know I did that first line terrible. It's sort of...
No, it's more Father.
Yes, okay.
Father.
And that famous dress you're wearing, what kind of planning went into that dress?
That was planning, studio planning.
Yes?
Yes.
And what were they going for
but
there?
They had one outfit that Dory Sherry's wife, Virginia Sherry, wouldn't allow us to use because she said it was too sexy.
You mean they were going for... there was a more revealing outfit
No.
that we didn't get to see?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was silver from the neck all the way down. It was sort of like a silver lame all the way down with silver boots. And then there was a silver hood that came. Everything was completely covered.
But she
And
thought
then
it was
over
too
that was a coat that was see-through plastic coat. And silver gloves.
And
too
so
sexy.
They thought that was too sexy, and they went for the shortest mini dress in the history of motion pictures up to that time.
Yeah.
Did you ever wear
Go figure.
that dress in public?
No.
Like to a promotional event or
Oh,
anything?
no, they wouldn't have let it out of the studio.
Okay, I got to ask you this.
What?
Were you really madly in love with Leslie Nielsen?
Of course.
Yeah?
Sure, why not?
Did you have
He was gorgeous.
a hot love affair with Leslie on the set?
Of course. I thought he was fabulous.
Yeah?
And I was madly in love with him before I met him because I'd seen him do wonderful, wonderful work on live television, you know, back in the days when, which I had come from before I came out to
Are you
the
still
studios.
good friends today?
Sure, haven't seen him for quite a while, but we've done a couple of shows since then together.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Well, this was your very first role, and of course among your most famous roles, but you're really also well known for a particular Twilight Zone episode. Do many people ask you about that? I'm sure they do.
We go from Father to Marcia. Yeah.
And it's the one where you're a mannequin.
After hours, yes.
Who comes to
the
life.
mannequin who comes to life and doesn't remember that she's a mannequin and goes to the store to buy a gold thimble for her mother. And then she gets embroiled in a horrific experience of being on the 13th floor and the whole place is empty.
Mannequin
kind of like this.
Yeah, okay. Well, the beautiful mannequin who comes to life is kind of an evergreen story that's been used many times in the movies and always takes they take the most gorgeous girl in Hollywood at the time and do the mannequin story.
Oh, you're kind.
We'll talk more with our special guest lecturer, Anne Francis, at the next break, but let's get back to Forbidden Planet. And whatever happened to that Anne Francis mannequin, by the way?
What Anne Francis mannequin?
The Anne Francis mannequin in the Twilight Zone episode.
Oh, my gosh, you had me going for a second there.
No. You know, there was an
my
Anne
God.
Francis mannequin in the Twilight Zone episodes. You know, it's probably a collector's item today, right?
Well, I have the head that was originally done.
You have the head?
Yes, it's sitting on top of my dresser in my bedroom.
Oh.
But,
Well, you don't
the
want
deaf
something like
mask
that
had-
getting into the wrong hands. I'm glad that you have it.
I sprayed it gold.
Well, you know what? You could
I
put it
should
in your
put
car.
a mirror around it.
No, you could put it in your car and use the carpool lane.
You're right. That's a good idea. I will put it on a... That's a
Twin
great
sisters.
idea. Great idea.
Want to win a free video of some obscure horror movie you've never heard of that some guy in West Virginia made in his basement? Of course you do. That's why umpteen jillion people have discovered our Find That Flick contest. If you've never heard of it, forget it. It's too complicated to explain on TV. But you can find out all about it on our MonsterVision website at tnt.turner.com/MonsterVision. And I'll give you one clue. If you're one of those guys who never leaves his apartment except to rent videos, this contest was designed to give heretofore unrealized meaning to your life.
Play the Find That Flick contest at tnt.turner.com/MonsterVision. Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Forbidden Planet on TNT.
Well, we're seeing more and more of why Anne Francis is so popular in this movie, because there you were making out with Jack Kelly, probably best known as Bart Maverick.
Yep.
And by the way, Anne, since this is UFO Studies 666 tonight, that's our topic, I want to ask you, do you believe in any kind of other life out there?
No, I'm just getting over 666, that number.
It was a little joke we made about UFO studies, you know.
I see. Do I believe there's any life out there?
Yeah.
Well, I've seen things out there, but then you know me. I can see things, you know. Well, remember when they had all of that big hullabaloo about Phoenix, Arizona, and the flaming lights in the sky? I've seen that out over Palm Desert, where I live. When I've been up in the mountains, up in Pinyon Crest, I've seen that. And I've seen one silver disc out there. So, yeah, something's going on.
Well, you actually had an eerie experience with some kind of ghost, right, when your daughter was little? What was that about?
That has absolutely nothing at all to do with Forbidden Planet.
Well, we've done a little research. We want to ask you about other things,
It's too
Ann.
long and too involved to tell you, Joe Bob.
All right, but you have daughters, right?
I have two wonderful daughters.
Are they
both
as good?
healthy?
Yeah?
And well.
Are they as good looking as you?
They're gorgeous.
Yeah? All right. Well, let's talk about... By the way, I wanted to refresh your memory. Here's the mannequin, Starlog magazine.
Yes.
Here's the mannequin. You'd forgotten about this mannequin.
I haven't forgotten about that
Oh,
mannequin,
okay.
but when you said the Anne Francis mannequin, that's a Marsha mannequin.
Oh, okay.
There's a difference.
And also, here's that silver lame jumpsuit that was regarded as too sexy for Forbidden Planet. All right, let's talk about your TV show, Honey West, for a minute. It was on in 1965, and one of the things I remember is that your lace garter belt was a gas mask.
Now, there you're wrong. Somebody told you that because I never had a lace garter belt that was a gas mask, so there.
Really?
Never. Who gave you that
I saw the
false...
episode where
That's Debbie. She gave you false information.
No.
She read the books instead of watching the show. I would never have had a garter belt that was a gas mask.
We had all kinds of gadgets on the show, right?
Yeah, but
And work with me a little bit, okay?
No, not when you
All
say
right,
these
well,
things.
describe the character for me then. I'll just listen.
She was fun-loving, she was adventurous, she was a lady detective, she had a marvelous time. All the bad guys she, would kick in the butt, and all the good guys she'd save, and she knew karate. She had an ocelot cat named Bruce. Bit of trivia
Everyone
there.
remembers the ocelot. No, that's not trivia. That's a major
the
part
name
of the
Bruce
show.
is trivia because nobody remembers his name.
Bruce the ocelot.
Bruce
and the network canceled
and he had
the show.
a stand-in.
Yeah. And the network canceled the show after only one season because they could buy the rights to the Avengers for less than it cost to make the show.
Yeah.
But people still talk about this show. And isn't it back on one of
it's
the...
on TV Land.
Well,
you don't want to talk about TV Land.
Okay, one of the cable networks. Okay, we're going to see what new dress Robbie the Robot makes for Anne as we continue with Forbidden Planet. Didn't you name your dog after Walter Pigeon? Don't tell me that's not true.
Walter Smidgen was his name.
Walter Smidgen,
and
okay.
I was down in Palm Springs visiting with Smidge along with me, and somebody who thought they were being very cute said that I was visiting so-and-so at such and such place in Palm Springs with Walter Pigeon.
Oh.
That caused quite a stir, especially with Mrs. Pigeon.
Did you like Walter?
You're very nosy, aren't you? I did not have an affair with Walter Pigeon, no. He played my father, remember?
Well, I know, but it would have been difficult to have an affair with Walter Pigeon while you were having an affair with Leslie Nielsen.
I know, and then there was Jack Kelly, too, so,
Jack Kelly, you're making out with him?
Oh, sure.
Anyway, but you named your dog Walter Smidgen. That could be considered a tribute, or it could be considered, you know.
Well, Smidgen was his name, and I chose Walter for his first name for obvious reasons. I thought it was funny.
I do know
But now that I look back, it wasn't.
Oh. I know a woman who calls her dog Joe Bob, but, and I know several women who call Joe Bob a dog, but we won't go into that.
Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Forbidden Planet on TNT.
Something sabotaged the klystron generator, not to mention the gyro stabilizer. What was all that stuff, Ann? Do you remember? All that techno jargon. What was all that about?
That was all wonderful stuff that was in the script, Joe Bob.
Okay, a Rod Serling script, by the way. Professor Joe Bob here.
No, it wasn't.
Rod Serling and someone else, right?
Rod Serling? No, Rod Serling did not. It was Cyril Hume who wrote the script.
What? Planet of the Apes. I'm sorry, I'm getting all my movies mixed up this summer on Joe Bob's Summer School. Professor Joe Bob here with Anne Francis, who plays Altera in Forbidden Planet. Anne, you are such a flirt in this movie.
Yes.
Were you naked in that lagoon?
Of course not.
Okay, I don't mean to offend you. You look naked. They made you look naked. They did a good job with the effects.
But if you look fast as I'm coming out of the lagoon, you can see a wisp of pale, sort of pinkish chiffon in the breeze. Quick! You have to look quickly.
Okay. How was it working with the robot, Robbie the robot?
Oh, Robbie was wonderful.
I hear he got really drunk.
Oh, you know something? You just are full of stories, aren't you? You're just full of all kinds of information.
Now, come on, this is a famous story. This is a famous story.
It became famous when I opened my mouth and told it once, and from then on, it's just become...
Robbie the robot got drunk,
There were
right?
there were two different guys who worked inside Robbie the robot, because working inside Robbie the robot, in defense of this one fellow, it was a very tough job. It was hot inside there. It was really rough. And this one day, he had a couple of martinis for lunch. And when he got back in the suit, there's a scene, you know, where Robbie walks away from the big kind of Jeep van kind of thing that he's attached to. And when he was walking away, something happened, and his feet kind of went like this, like on an incline, and he started going this way, downward. And about 15 grips got him before he hit the ground, because he was the most expensive actor in the show. He cost $1 million to put together. That was important stuff.
So that was the...
A drunken actor you can replace.
But the guy almost
A robot you can't replace.
Ruined the robot suit. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Let's go back to the movie, because that was a really short segment. We'll talk again at the next segment. How many times have you actually watched this movie?
Do you know, I haven't really watched it that often, but I just saw it at the Los Angeles Theater a couple of weeks ago on CinemaScope. We had 2,100 people there. We had the greatest time. Yeah, it was fun.
Did you find that you remembered it? Do you know it by heart?
Yeah, pretty much so.
Okay, then which is it? The klystron generator or the klystron transmitter?
Oh, no, that part I didn't have to memorize, Joe Bob. That part was not my responsibility.
Okay. When you enter the caption contest and you don't win, do not write us a letter saying his caption sucks. Let's be good sports about this, okay? After all, the only reason you're so angry is that the stakes are so low. One measly Monster Vision t-shirt. Because if the prize is that cheap and you don't win it, it kind of brings into question your potential in all areas, right? But let's not dwell on that. If you think your caption is hilarious, then come on down to the website and try to make the six-headed jury laugh. That address is tnt.turner.com/monstervision. And here's a tip. Think sixth grade humor. We love that.
Try to win a free t-shirt in our caption contest on the one and only Monster Vision website at tnt.turner.com/monstervision. Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Forbidden Planet on TNT.
Wow, this is a talky movie, you know? Do they have to give the whole history of Krell civilization? Anyway, we have a special treat for our guest lecturer, Anne Francis. So let me give a little history about Robbie the Robot. I want to get this out of the way first before we do our special presentation. But Robbie was such a hit in Forbidden Planet in 1956 that he did another movie the following year called The Invisible Boy. And he also appeared in many TV shows throughout the years, including Lost in Space and The Twilight Zone, and even The Love Boat. And in 1970, MGM sold Robbie the Robot at an auction to a prop museum where he proceeded to get vandalized over time by these wrongdoing hoodlums. And then in 1974, Robbie was restored by a guy named Fred Barton. And sometime after that, my pal Mick Garris, the director of The Stand, bought Robbie and put him in his house, I think. And then Mick then sold Robbie to Bill Malone, another director who just directed the remake of House on Haunted Hill. And then we think that Bill sold him to some kind of Japanese touring sci-fi exhibit. But guess who has the licensing rights to Robbie? Who bought all the old MGM films a few years ago? Ted Turner, right? So Turner Entertainment has the rights to Robbie the Robot, and we used our pull to arrange for a very special reunion tonight. Anne Francis, your old friend, Robbie the Robot. How about this? Robbie the Robot, what do you think? She's so happy, she doesn't know what to say. Robbie, just like you remember him, right? And we spent a lot of money getting him here, so I hope it was worth it.
I think he's been using the Thigh Master. He's
Hey.
a little thinner down here than I remember.
Oh, okay. What's going on? What's going on? You couldn't get the robot, right? I asked for the robot. I asked for the robot so many times that you told me you had the robot. It's one of those Time Warner bureaucracy things, right? We have the rights to the robot. Ann, I'm so embarrassed.
I know, but don't get upset.
so embarrassed.
It's all right. It's all right.
This.
It's a nice robot. What do you know? Don't hurt its feelings.
You try to cover it up with this.
Got
You don't know the
blue
kind
eyes
of people
like
I work
Frankie.
for here.
He's beautiful. I
Robbie
don't know
the
why
robot,
he's
not that tall, is he? Robbie the Robot is about 6 feet, you know?
Robbie's about this tall, and he did not have black rubber gloves. God knows what they're for.
Don't you dum-dums know that? Good grief. I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
That's
Ann,
all
but
right.
thanks
That's
so
all
much
right.
for coming by. Let's get back to the movie. And it's humiliating to do that kind of thing to me. The gorgeous Anne Francis, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. It's
Are
been
you
fun.
single, Anne?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
Still
what does that
available.
mean?
just had to find out before
Oh, I
you
see.
leave.
Okay.
Okay, fire away. I can take it. Hit me with your best shots. You're going to reduce me to tears, aren't you? You're going to emasculate me with your mail, as usual. But if you got something to say about tonight's movie, or me, or the mail girl, or the war in Kosovo, then I invite you, because I am a masochist, to contact me at my personal email address, monstervision@turner.com, or you can visit the Monstervision website at tnt.turner.com/monstervision and send a crushing, mean-spirited email from there. Or you can even do it the old-fashioned way by sending a letter to Monstervision, care of TNT Programming, 1010 Techwood Drive, Atlanta, Georgia, 30318. So I've given you 3 ways to nuke me. I would remind you, God is watching what you write.
Visit the Monstervision website at tnt.turner.com/monstervision. Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Forbidden Planet on TNT.
Most Forbidden Planet fans would know that the movie is based on Shakespeare's play, The Tempest. You guys all knew that, right? It's based on The Tempest. Dr. Morbius, he's Prospero, the magician who controls the action in the play. Altera is his daughter Miranda in Shakespeare. Commander Adams, Leslie Nielsen's role, he's Prince Ferdinand in the play. Robbie the Robot is Caliban, the earthly spirit. The monster is Ariel. And I won't say why that's the monster, because that'll, give away the ending of the movie. Oh, no! I ruined it, didn't I? You know the ending now, because I told you that Ariel is the monster. It's the same as The Tempest. Leon is over here bawling like a baby because I ruined the surprise. Even the minor characters in the movie are based on the play, like the cook with a taste for the sauce. He matches Stefano, the drunken servant, in The Tempest. And that's the veteran actor Earl Holliman in that role, best known as Angie Dickinson's sidekick on Policewoman and many movies, Sharky's Machine. He was also in the original Twilight Zone episode, the one where he wanders around a deserted city the whole time, and then you find out he's part of a test to see how humans respond to being alone in space flight. The original Twilight Zone. Anybody who was anybody in those days got to do a Twilight Zone. Okay, let's keep it going. Back to the movie. Forbidden Planet is actually based on Shakespeare's play and Freud's concept of a tripartite psyche. Would you like me to explain the tripartite psyche? I didn't think so.
Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Forbidden Planet on TNT.
What a great way to save special effects money. The creature is invisible. It's a giant four-footed arboreal killer sloth, right? But you can't see it. So, genius. But it's no wonder the crew of the spaceship couldn't kill the monster because they're only hitting it with 3 billion electron volts. That is a minuscule amount, like subatomic physics kind of minuscule. 3 billion of them wouldn't be enough to cook a snail. You hit a grain of sand with 3 billion electron volts, you don't even see a difference. All right, time for the exciting Shakespearean/Freudian conclusion to Forbidden Planet. Go. 3 billion electron volts. I need that much just to do this. Watch. Is my left eyebrow moving? See, I need more than 3 billion. Guess I need, all right, full power. You know what that was? That was about 100 trillion electron volts.
Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Forbidden Planet on TNT.
Well, that was a little confusing there at the end, wasn't it? The Krell used an underground power plant to create little Princess Leia holograms, but they forgot about their own lust for destruction, the monsters of the id, which don't like strange men talking to daddy's little girl, do they? See, not only does this movie employ Freud's concept of the tripartite psyche, the id, the ego, and the superego, it also utilizes the archetypal Electra pattern, the female equivalent of Oedipus, or in layman's terms, it's that incest thing. And speaking of the Princess Leia hologram, this movie no doubt is where George Lucas got the idea for that scene in Star Wars. Because when he was creating Star Wars, he watched tons of old sci-fi flicks, including Forbidden Planet. And you can also trace R2-D2 and C-3PO back to Robbie the Robot. And would somebody get rid of this thing while I'm talking about Robbie the Robot? Anyhow, I want to thank Stanton T. Friedman and Ann Francis for stopping by tonight. Also, let me remind you that next week's summer school course is Food Science 504, and we'll be taking a field trip to the famous Spago in Beverly Hills so Wolfgang Puck can teach me how to take something out of the oven while it's still edible. And we'll be watching the food classics Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and the Ice Cream Man, and Clint Howard will be dropping by too. So that's it for me, Professor Joe Bob, wondering, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to see it, do the other trees make fun of it? Did you guys hear the one about this guy, Jake? This guy, Jake, is struggling through a bus station with these 2 huge suitcases when a stranger walks up to him and says, "Have you got the time?" So Jake puts down the 2 suitcases and he looks at his wrist and he tells the stranger, "It's 5:45. And the stranger says, "Hey, that's a pretty fancy watch." And Jake brightens up just a little bit and says, "Yeah, it's not bad. Check this out." And he shows him a time zone display, not just for every time zone in the world, but for the 86 largest cities in the world. He hits a few buttons on his watch, and from somewhere on the watch, this voice says, "The time is 11 till 6. But it says it in a West Texas accent. Then a few more buttons, and the same voice says something in Japanese. And Jake says to the guy, "Yeah, I put in regional accents for each city on my watch." And the display on the watch is unbelievable high quality. The voice is amazing. The stranger, he's dumbstruck. And Jake says, "Well, that's not all if you really want to see the watch." And he pushes a few more buttons and this tiny but very high-resolution map of New York City appears on the display. And he tells the guy, "The flashing dot, see, shows our location by satellite positioning." And then he says, "View recede 10." And the display changes to show eastern New York State. Well, the stranger tells him, "I want to buy this watch." And Jake says, "Oh, no, it's not ready for sale yet. I'm still working out all the bugs in it. But look at this." And he demonstrates that the watch is also a pretty decent little FM radio receiver with a digital tuner, and it has a sonar device on it that can measure distances up to 125 meters, a pager with thermal paper printout, And most impressive of all, the capacity for voice recordings of up to 300 standard-sized books. And he says, but I only have 32 of my favorites in there so far, you know, Jake tells me. The stranger says, I got to have this watch. And Jake says, no, you don't understand. It's not ready. The stranger says, I'll give you $1,000 for the watch. And Jake says, oh, no, I've already spent more than that developing the watch. And he says, I'll give you $5,000 for it. And Jake goes, oh, but it's just not. He says, I'll give you $15,000 for this watch. The stranger pulls out his checkbook, and Jake thinks about it in a minute, and he's only invested about $8,500 in materials and development. With $15,000, he can make another watch and have it ready for merchandising in 6 months or so. So the stranger frantically finishes writing out the check, and he waves it in front of him, and he says, here it is, and I'm ready to hand it to you right now, $15,000. Take it or leave it. And Jake says, okay, and he peels off the watch, and they make the exchange, and the stranger starts away happily with his new watch, and Jake calls out to him, hey, wait a minute. And he turns around, the stranger turns around, looks at him, and Jake points to the 2 suitcases he'd been trying to wrestle through the bus station. He says, don't forget your batteries. Joe Bob Briggs reminding you that the drive-in will never die. That was a long mother of a joke, wasn't it? Okay, a black guy, a white guy, a Catholic priest, a Lutheran minister, a rabbi, a hooker, a chicken, a football player, a baseball player, a wife, a husband, a Pole, a Russian, a little boy, a dog, a drunk, an Irishman, St. Peter, and a penguin walk into a bar. Bartender says, what is this, a joke? Two peanuts are walking down the street. One is assaulted.